Welcome back to Toby Jones Talks Music. Today's video is all about Bruce Springsteen, the boss, and in particular two albums that have shaped the second half of 2025 for me. This is an unscripted discussion. I could possibly go on for hours, but I'm going to use the yardstick that I'm going to drink my cup of tea, and as soon as I finish my cup of tea, I'm going to try and stop. So that's probably 20 odd minutes. That gives me a decent yardstick to go at. So we'll take the first sip of my cup of tea, which we have done, and then we're going to get going. So, Bruce Springsteen, an artist that before 5 months ago, I sort of knew the greatest hits, but not a lot more. One album I did know by Bruce Springsteen before this experiment begun was Tunnel of Love. And for a long time, I've really liked this album. As time's gone by, the last 12, 18 months, it's grew to a real high standard, one of those top albums for me. Particularly the song One Step Up is one of my favourite Bruce songs, still is now, even after listening to probably 10 or 12 of his albums. Particularly the slower songs on this, the more moody songs have become more prevalent over the last few months. Cautious Man, Walk Like a Man, One Step Up, Valentine's Day. The likes of Tougher Than the Rest and Brilliant Disguise, I can't say I've really listened to those all too much, which could be a symptom of what I've been listening to with the likes of Nebraska, etc., etc., going on from there. So, in June this year, it's horrible because a lot of these musical experiences, I can't remember what the catalyst was, but in June this year, I just played Nebraska for the first time. I'd never heard it before, and it took me some time to get used to it. I talked about this briefly in a video I did a couple of months ago, looking at what I'd been listening to in June, and in June that started an experiment whereby I got an old iPod Touch, which... Can I show? I don't know if the cable will go that long, because actually, yeah, there we go. It's there. It's actually on charge at the moment, hence why I'm having to lean over to get it, because it's being used a lot. But I started that experiment about 5 months ago of putting an iPod in the car on the way into and from work and listening to an album as I go along. I found that I wasn't listening to enough new music, or that my only opportunity really was on a Wednesday when I work from home, and I was kind of listening to it in the background, listening to something once, and then by the time the following week came by, I'd pick something else. So I wasn't really digesting anything properly, but I work from the office 4 days a week, so that gave me ample opportunity, and I found the sort of rhythm I've gone for is to listen to an album a week. And if I've had 4 listens and don't feel like I've got there yet, I'll carry on, but I'll just judge that in my mind and think, I don't think I need any more time with this album at the moment to give it an overall rating. And that seems to have worked for me, but let's digress from all that in terms of the iPod Touch process. This is more about the musical process today rather than the collecting or, I suppose, listening process or whatever you want to call it. But through those 5 months I have listened to, let me just top this up, I think it is, yeah. So I'm on my 12th album now, which is Born to Run. I've gone about this in a bit of a peculiar way. I've listened to Nebraska, then I went to Tom Joad because that was meant to be the kind of spiritual successor to Nebraska. That didn't work. I wasn't liking Tom Joad at all, so I had to make sure that the experiment didn't end early. I then went on to other artists, then went straight back to Springsteen. I think with this album, The Rising, which was one I really, really enjoyed. So I listened to the Rising, and then I think after that I went back to The River. And The River was a slow burner for me for a long time. I say a long time, it's only been a couple of months since I've listened to this album for the first time. This was a slow burner, and because it's a double album, I felt pretty strongly after listening to this for the first few times that there was a good single album in here somewhere. There were probably 10 of, I think there are 20 tracks on this, aren't there? Yeah, 20 tracks. Of the 20 tracks, I think there was half of them that would constitute a really good single album. But there was too much filler, too much buffer in this, which is what a lot of people probably say about The Wall by Pink Floyd, which is my favourite album of all time. So there are parallels here. As the time's gone by, after my initial I think I listened to it 3 times. Because it's a double album, it takes double the time to listen to, of course. And I'd had 3 listens and I thought, no, I want to move on to something else. I don't think I'm going to get any benefit from listening to this anymore, rather than moving on to something different, say. So I shelved it. But throughout that time, I was listening to single tracks from The River. I actually did a quick, interesting summary to see how much of Bruce's music I've listened to in the last 5 months. And it comes to 60 hours, which doesn't really seem like that much, but I suppose it is 2.5 days out of the last 150, I guess. Rough figures, so as a percentage, what's that? Just over 1% of the... Yeah, it doesn't sound like very much, so that statistic doesn't really help in saying how much I've been listening to Bruce's music. But that very much is full album listens, not listening to certain tracks and picking off single tracks and thinking, oh, I want to listen to that. The River, I'm going to go straight into this rather than all the faff now. Side 4, well, it's not quite side 4 because Stolen Car's on side 3. The ending to this album, in particular, I think is absolutely tremendous. The one thing with The River which does bug me a bit, but I think from a listening experience it would become a bit of a double Nebraska if you weren't careful, is that you've got quite a moody song, which the moody songs, the slower songs, are the ones I probably enjoy more, followed by something that's a little bit more playful. For instance, at the start of the album, The Ties That Bind, it's not a slow and moody song, but it's a very good track. And then that's followed by Sherry Darling and Jackson Cage, which, they're okay, they're fine. I just wouldn't revisit them that much. And then Two Hearts is good, and then bang, Independence Day, brilliant. Hungry Heart, really good. I knew that one already, Hungry Heart and The River. Out in the Street, that's a good track. Again, I prefer the moody tracks, the atmospheric tracks, but that's not to say I don't like the groovy tracks, the ones that are up tempo. Dancing in the Dark, it's probably Bruce's best hit. That's subjective. I think it's Bruce's best hit, but it's his biggest hit. That was the objective statement I was going for there. Crush on You, decent. You Can Look, but you better not touch, decent. I Want to Marry You, again, that's a little bit slower. I like that. Point Blank, brilliant. Cadillac Ranching on a Rocker, great. And then we have Fade Away, brilliant. Stolen Car. Wow. That track, there's definitely flirtings here, isn't there, of what's to come with Nebraska. I've done another little experiment as well, and I've listened to all of these albums, and I've made a note of my favourite song from each album, almost to like create a greatest hit set, but it's got to be all from different albums. And from The River, it's definitely Stolen Car, and it's one of my favourite Bruce songs. Then it's probably one of the ones I've revisited the most over these last months. It was Independence Day, but that's been replaced by Stolen Car. The atmosphere in this, yeah, it's incredible. Honestly, it is brilliant. And this album and Nebraska, as I'll talk about more in a little bit, it's been drawing parallels with my own life, and probably these songs don't reflect entirely what I'm going through at the moment, but they have parallels, and I've created similarities in my mind to what that might be, metaphors as to what that might be. The Price You Pay in particular is one that I think is, well, not fairly obvious, but more obvious than the other ones. That, to me, I'm in my mid-20s, I've worked a job for some time now, and nothing's really changed in terms of my life, and you start to think, well, what's it all about? Is, you go to work 5 days a week and blah, 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 and all the rest of it, and the weekends are pretty quiet, and it's almost the price you pay for the life you live, the quiet life you live. Stolen Car, almost to me is a metaphor for, am I in the right place? Am I in the wrong place? Am I doing the correct thing with my life? I know that probably isn't what the song means in the way Bruce meant it, but it feels like that to me. Wreck on the Highway, brilliant. Drive All Night, wow, that's excellent. Ramrod, that's a bit of fun, I guess, in the middle of it all, but I have to say, I feel like if Stolen Car, The Price You Pay, Drive All Night and Wreck on the Highway was the final side, that would be very much up there for the greatest sides of vinyl of all time. Just so it happens, I've got the CD, so it doesn't make any difference. The second disc, I would say, is stronger than the first, but what I'm coming round to here is that I like Stolen Car straight away, but The Price You Pay, Wreck on the Highway, they took time for me to get into, and it wasn't until I went back and listened to them separately. I guess you get a bit of fatigue, don't you, as you get to towards the end of the end of an album. A good example, perhaps, is this. Going much later in Bruce's career, Working on a Dream. And I think this starts really well. I know this is a bit of a diversion. Outlaw Pete. That is one of my favourite Bruce tracks of the 21st century. And I've seen that live on the London Calling Blu-ray. And looking at some of the comments on that, saying that all the hits were performed that night, all the great hits, and this was the best performance of the night. And you can't say Bruce puts a phoned-in performance in, can you? Absolutely electric. But the point I was coming round to, I'd put that down. The point I was coming down to with this, right, is that it starts very well. Outlaw Pete and My Lucky Day, and then it sort of goes a little bit south. And by the end of the album, actually, The Wrestler is alright. The Last Carnival is alright. Kingdom of Days is okay. I like Surprise, Surprise. Tomorrow Never... What I'm coming to is, I think by the second half of this album, I've got... Brassed off's the wrong word. I've probably become impatient. So these tracks, again, if it was top-heavy and front-loaded and these tracks were on the first half of the album, I'd probably enjoy them a bit more. In fact, as I've got it here, Wrecking Ball's probably the same. Land of Hope and Dreams, Rocky Ground, We Are Alive. Again, first time round, I wasn't too enamoured with them, but as I've gone back and revisited them, I enjoy them. But as for The River, this was an album I rated 7 out of 10 first time round. And that was purely because there's a 10 out of 10 album somewhere, and there's probably a 5 or 6 somewhere else. So it's somewhere in the middle of that. I wasn't confident enough in my convictions to give it an 8. And that was the rating that I'd given this. The Rising. It took a while. Took a few listens again. And The Rising is another one that would have been a double album if it had been vinyl. And again, is guilty of being a little bit too long. For me. After listening to it for 3 or 4 times, I still didn't really know what I was getting. Straight away, You're Missing. Brilliant. And that's been my favourite on this album for a long time. As I take another sip. This is only my second sip. Had the cup of tea. But as I went on, The Fuse, Mary's Place, Further On Up the Road, the first track, Lonesome Day, Waiting on a Sunny Day, that's brilliant. But then there are tracks, funnily enough, the title track I'm not that enamoured with. But as an album, there's 2 different metrics here, aren't there? There's the album, to listen to as an album, and then there's the individual tracks. I think sometimes I am guilty of looking at things from an individual tracks basis. When I used to do reviews on this channel, it'd be right, that track's a 10 out of 10, this is a 6, which means the album must be an 8 out of 10. It doesn't quite work like that, because the flow of tracks when you're listening to an album compared to when you listen to them individually can be totally different. You're Missing works in any environment. Any environment. It's unskippable for me. It's that good. But the point I'm coming to here is that apart from that track and maybe a few others, I haven't revisited this really in the last few months, which is okay because I'm moving on to other things. You can't keep revisiting the same old things. But as I've been listening, so I've gone back to the start now from Greetings from Asbury Park and the E Street Shuffle and Born to Run. This is still well in the rotation. So I think this is going to go up my lists straight away. So that's enough about The River, I think. And its companion has to be where it all started. Where this experiment all started back in June. Nebraska. Nebraska, Atlantic City, Mansion on the Hill, Johnny 99, Highway Patrolman. I've almost ticked off these songs as I go. When I listened to it the first few times, there were probably 4 or 5 I really liked. As I've got into it more, tick, 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 tick. State Trooper, Used Cars, Open All Night, My Father's House, and Reason to Believe. Reason to Believe, a little bit like them songs on The River, that's a song that's really been, what's the word? Resonated, that's the word. Really resonated with me recently. For obvious reasons, as I've kind of hinted at with stuff about The River. That's very obvious. You know, after all this, after a long working day, people still find reason to believe. Yeah. You know, this is brilliant. This is brilliant. It took me some time to get into, and anybody that's going to listen to this for the first time, don't expect results straight away. You're not going to click with it straight away. It took me time. The difference with Tom Joad is that I couldn't see anything. Youngstown I like Youngstown. But, yeah, that just all moulded into the same track. And the first time I listened to this was on a Wednesday working from home, and it got to the end and I thought, well, there's not really much there to listen to, is there? But when you're sat in your car on autopilot, no, I am focusing. But when you're driving to and from work, a place that you go couple of hundred times a year, you can go on autopilot to a degree. So the focus was completely on the music. One of the early favourites was Johnny 99, one of the more upbeat tracks on the album. State Trooper does something completely different. Open All Night was the more rocky on this album. My favourite today, and has been for a while, is My Father's House. The emotion in that song, again, atmosphere, lyrics. I asked this question the other day to someone who's into music. Are you a music person or a lyrics person? And listening to Springsteen has not changed my opinion on that, but made me think a bit more about the lyrics, because before I'd say I was definitely a music person. The lyrics have got to be there. The lyrics have got to... I say the lyrics have got to mean something, but some of the stuff I listen to, the lyrics don't mean anything at all. But I think with music like this, the lyrics have got to be there somewhat. The music's still the most important point, but the likes of Nebraska has really turned my brain round to thinking, well, it hasn't got to be all flashy music. It's just got to be the lyrics. But State Trooper, that's the music for me that gets me with that. The building up in that song, the building up in tension. Highway Patrolman is probably a bit more lyrics based, maybe. Yeah, I think that there is a blend of lyrics and music here. I'm not waxing lyrical about this as much as I did about The River, which is interesting because this remains my favourite Springsteen album. Still, though, behind this one. Nothing's going to replace this yet. I think it's just the holy grail at the moment. I'm struggling to find anything to replace that. But in terms of Nebraska, and what really broke me with Nebraska is the fact I went to see the new Bruce Springsteen film last week, and I was really disappointed. And I think that's because I was in the game for a long time and listening to a lot of Bruce, so I probably expected a lot, and it didn't really deliver for me. Deliver me from nowhere, there's a pun there. And if you want to see my review of that film, then go over to my film channel, which I recommend you subscribe to. But yeah, this album, Electric Nebraska as well, by the way, that's come out recently. And I'm not so sure about some of the Electric Nebraska cuts, I have to say, from the trailer. Hearing Johnny 99 in the trailer, I thought, oh, this could be good. Not so sure. I've only given it one listen, to be fair. I've not gone back to it more. The two tracks that are awesome are both the same. Born in the USA. One, the Electric Nebraska version, and two, the 82 demo version. That song is a completely different song, and I think better for it. And that might be me just being a contrarian, because I like to be a contrarian. I say I like to be a contrarian, I just find myself in that realm. That I tend to just like things that are different. I don't think it's for the sake of it, and I don't intend to do it, but I always seem to find myself in that camp. Can't do anything about it, I suppose. But these two albums have really been the story so far of the second half of my 2025. They really have, because even as I've been going through the other albums, those that you've got there, the stuff in this box set, the earlier albums, Greetings from Asbury Park, The Wild, the Innocent, the E Street Shuffle, and Born to Run, which I'm on at the moment. Again, I'm still listening to The River in Nebraska. Might not be a full listen, but it might be I'll put Stolen Car on and we'll listen to the album to Whack on the Highway. Or I'll listen to the second half of the album. Or maybe with Nebraska, it'll just be My Father's House and Reason to Believe. So I think I've probably listened to a lot more of those than the listens would suggest. According to the stats, I've listened to Nebraska 7 times, which I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. Must listen to that much more. And The River 3 times, but they're full listens, so individual tracks probably a lot more than that. But this is really a celebration of music, and for anybody that's watching, I don't think anybody will be watching at this point, unless you're just curious, who isn't really into music in this way. The album, the artist, going through the discography. I haven't felt this way about an artist since I discovered Pink Floyd. That's massive. That is huge. Discovered Pink Floyd probably about 6 years ago now, and the impact they had on me was 7 years ago. It's 2025, not 2024. the impact they had on me was tremendous. I think the following year, well, in fact, any time, I went back to listen to Wish You Were Here. It wasn't, I know this is divulging into a Pink Floyd discussion now, and I've got about half my tea left. It's a bit on the cold side, so I am running it a little bit cheekily over the time. I won't say go off Pink Floyd, but when the newest thing's always the best, right? But I re-listened to Wish You Were Here and then listened to Animals. And funnily enough, I was watching Pink Floyd Delicate Sound of Thunder last week. And on Wednesday, when I was at home, I listened to this. I've just realised that this is like a behind-the-scenes thing, but it'll be relevant in a minute. David Gilmour's live in Gdansk. I think that's the right pronunciation. Listening to that on Wednesday, and at one point I would have said that Dark Side of the Moon, Wish You Were Here, Animals and The Wall could all qualify as my 4 favourite albums. And they still could. Because that's the beauty when you go back to an artist. If you can go back to an artist and enjoy it like you did, you'll never enjoy it like you did the first time. There's never going back. No going back to that first time, the feeling. But if you can enjoy it, then there's sustainability in the music, isn't there? And I don't think, as I say, I've felt this way since I first listened to Pink Floyd. And this is the first time I've done this, really. I've gone through a discography like this. I've done it with bits and pieces. I think the last one I probably did it with them was the Moody Blues. But I have to say I neglected them a bit because the 80s albums, Long Distance Voyage is great, but the present I've only listened to that once or twice. And then the 2 later 80s albums, listened to both of those once and dismissed them. And the lesson, if I dismissed this after listening to it for the first time, we wouldn't be here today. I'm confident of that because I wouldn't have. But I might have moved on to Born in the USA perhaps, rather than Tom Joad. That might have been the mistake. But we got back on track with The River. I don't know whether when I get to the end of this to do an album ranking of all the Bruce albums, I'd like to do little reviews of all of them. I don't think I want to do 20, 30-minute reviews of each album because they don't all mean that much to me to do a review of. But maybe little shorts or a couple of minutes or an album ranking I think might be enough to do that, possibly. But The River, Nebraska, yeah, I think I can talk more about The River because The River is more recent that I've been listening to that one. Really good. Really, really good. Slow burner though, because it was a 7 out of 10 first off. And it's really, really grown on me. Again, at the start of the process, it was probably good single album, bit of a disappointing double album. Now we're at the stage of really strong album and a half, trim a couple of tracks, and it's an absolute boster. Nebraska's like that all pretty much throughout. So, unfortunately, although it's still there in my rankings officially, The Rising's still at 3rd. It's going to be displaced by The River, I think. But this is all a celebration, as I said, of the quality of music, the enjoyment of music, how it can distract you from what's going on in your life. And I wouldn't say, woe is me, I'm having a terrible life, but I think we all have to consider our situation and think, could things be different? There's some things that can't change in your life, but we're all only round this spinning plate for such an amount of time, so why not explore what there is to offer? And that thing to offer at the moment that I would recommend, take your pick. Take your pick between these two if you haven't listened to them before. I'd be stunned if anybody's got to this point and hasn't. But yeah, listen to these two and let me know what you think down in the comments. I've got a bit of my tea left, but it's a bit cold now, so I think we've run over the time. This was just completely unscripted, and I think I've got my point across. I just wanted to convey those views on how Bruce Springsteen's music has really helped me get through the second half of 2025. And probably by my calcs, I'm trying not too hard to think about it because I don't want to think, oh, I've got 6 albums left, or I've got 6, 7 albums left. I haven't got everything by Bruce, but we've got Darkness on the Edge of Town, Born in the USA, the 2 early 90s albums. And is that it for what I've got then? Let me turn around. Brucey. Human Touch. Yeah, I think I've only got 4 left. I've only got 4 left after Born to Run, so We've got about 6 weeks till Christmas. I said about 6 weeks ago I think it would be about Christmas that I'd listen to the lot. So I think we're probably on about target to get there. There's a few I haven't got, and you know what? Most some of the later albums, and I might discover them at a different time. I can't keep this on hold, just waiting for newer albums. I have listened to Western Stars before, which is from 2019, but I haven't got it physically. And there's something about this, about the physical media as well. But I can feel myself going on a very long tangent, so we're going to stop it there and perhaps talk about this in a couple of weeks when I've listened to more albums. Maybe you would like to see a semi-regular update of how I'm getting on with Bruce. Let me know down in the comments. But I have enjoyed just this talking to the camera. I've been thinking a lot about the river in Nebraska the last couple of days, particularly the river. So that's the reason why I wanted to sit in front of the camera with a cup of tea and talk about that. I haven't even touched on the likes of Magic from the 2000s, which I really like. And haven't really talked much about Working on a Dream, Wrecking Ball, got Devils and Dust down there. I mean, just to show, today I have been working from home, a bit different on a Friday, it's a one-off. And today I've listened to Working on a Dream, Wrecking Ball, Devils and Dust, just to keep them in the ears. If I dislike them that much, I wouldn't be listening to them again. So there you go. Even Devils and Dust at a 5 out of 10 is good enough to warrant me having a 6th, possibly 7th listen of that. So there you go. Bruce is the man. The boss is the man. Very much the man of 2025 for me. Who's the man of 2025 for you? Might have different connotations, I suppose, but who is your artist of 2025 so far? It might be you're listening to something far newer, or you're going through an artist discography and having a great time, like I am. When we have the mundane nature of work, it's something to hold on to. That get to 3:30 and I can put the Bruce back on. Except when you're listening to the Ghost Tom Joad. I'll leave it there. The Ghost Tom Joad will be someone's favourite album, I'm sure. Thank you for your company for this ramble, and I'll be sure to be back soon. That short from about 6 months. 6 months ago now, he's probably going to horror me by me saying, yay, 10 Little Love's my favourite album and I don't know any more Bruce. How things can change in 6 months, eh? See you next time.